We had an early flight to San Francisco that required us to leave home by 4 a.m. Processing at the dock was terrible. We waited in line for almost 2 hours because the terminal only had one elevator for the large number of handicapped people boarding the ship. We met up with Bo and Linda, who had flown in from DFW. Our balcony upgrade was on the starboard side and had a good view of the Bay Bridge. Sail away was at 4 p.m., so we had good views of Alcatraz Island as we left San Francisco. There were quite a few sail surfers in the bay that did not seem to fear the ship traffic. The highlight of any cruise originating in San Francisco is sailing under the Golden Gate Bridge as you leave the bay. After 2 days at sea, we docked in Ketchikan, Alaska. This is our 4th visit to this port, so we had no particular plans for the day. After a leisurely morning, we got off the ship and wandered around the dock area before heading into town. The coastal towns in Alaska that are cruise destinations depend heavily on tourism. You will find multiple souvenir shops and jewelry outlets around town. Ketchikan is home to the Tongass National Forest and has an interesting totem pole display area. The best activity in Ketchikan is a float plane trip to Misty Fjords. We have done this tour, so we spent some time exploring the shops along Creek Street before returning to the ship. The next morning, we docked at Wrangell, Alaska. This is a small village established by Russia in 1811. The Hudson's Bay Company leased the site until the United States bought Alaska in 1869. At that time, the military built a fort here that remained active until 1877. The naturalist John Muir lived here for 2 years in the late 1800s. We wanted to visit some native pictographs, but the site was too far from the ship. We recognized Wrangell as the location of a medical emergency on our last voyage, with the entire family celebrating our 50th wedding anniversary. Haines sets on an inlet of the Lynn Canal formed by the Chilkat River. It lies south of Skagway and east of Glacier Bay. The mountains that separate Haines from Glacier Bay give this one of the most beautiful settings of any port in Alaska. Haines marked the terminus of an Tlingit Indian Portage Trail. Ownership of the site was disputed between the United States and Canada until 1903. The Klondike Gold Rush of 1896 to 1899 changed the region greatly. Haines became a supply center for the Dalton Trail from Chilkat Inlet that offered a route to the Yukon for prospectors. We rented a car in Haines and drove into Canada on the Haines Highway that was constructed in 1943 by the Army. The highway follows the same path as the White Pass and Yukon Route Railway, which was built in 1900. This railway led to the demise of Haines and turned Skagway into the major port on the Lynn Canal. We were entertained by the sight of this grizzly bear that was sleeping along the highway. It was obvious that his winter hibernation had not quite ended. We enjoyed the many views of the Chilkat River and the mountains that bordered the roadway. As we departed Haines that evening, we enjoyed the beauty of its setting from our balcony as we sailed back out the Lynn Canal heading towards Sitka. Sitka was established by Russia in 1799. In 1802, the Tlingit Indians destroyed the original settlement and killed most of the Russian inhabitants. The Russians returned in 1804 and recaptured the settlement. Bishop Innocent established a school in his house after 1840. The Cathedral of St. Michael was the first church built in Sitka in 1848. Later, many non-Russians migrated to Sitka and in 1900 constructed St. Peter's by the Sea Episcopal Church. Sitka was the site of the transfer of Alaska from Russia to the United States in 1867. Today, even though the population is only 8,500, Sitka is the largest city by total area in the United States. Bo and Linda did not get off the ship in Sitka, but we took a shuttle from the ship to the center of town. From there, we walked to the historic park. Our path took us along the coastline and the marina. We passed the bishop's house and the Episcopal Church before arriving at the Totem Pole exhibition at the historic park. We retraced our steps to the center of town to shop and see St. Michael's Church before returning to the ship on the shuttle. From Sitka, we made our way overnight to Glacier Bay, where we cruised all day. Comprised of 3.3 million acres of mountains, glaciers, forests, and waterways, Glacier Bay National Park is a highlight of the Inside Passage and part of a 25 million acre World Heritage Site. The Park Service allows only 2 cruise ships per day. Most enter the Tar Inlet to observe the Margaree and Grand Pacific Glaciers, and then the Johns Hopkins Inlet to observe the glacier of the same name. The Grand Pacific Glacier is responsible for carving out the entire Glacier Bay Inlet. This glacier extended all the way into Icy Strait in 1750, but today, the glacier has receded 65 miles from its farthest extension. This area was the original home of the Tlingit Indians. But during the Little Ice Age, when the Grand Pacific Glacier began to advance, they were forced to relocate to Hoonah in the Icy Strait area. We shared the bay with a Holland America ship. They entered the Johns Hopkins Inlet first while we entered the Tar Inlet. Each ship spends about an hour in each inlet, and then they swap locations. We have visited Glacier Bay 4 times since 2002, and we have noticed the recession of each of the several tidewater glaciers in this bay. While the global warming alarmists raise all their objections, I believe this is part of a never-ending cycle of warming periods followed by cooling periods. During the night, we sailed further north up the coast of Alaska to Yakutat Bay. This is a wide bay that at its northeastern head splits into Disenchantment Bay to the north and Russell Fjord to the southeast. At the junction of these 2 bodies of water lies the Hubbard Glacier. The source of the Hubbard Glacier lies 76 miles inland. 2 supplemental glaciers contribute to it. It takes 400 years for ice to flow from the source to the sea. Most of the ice wall at the end of a glacier lies underwater. Hubbard Glacier is more dangerous than some glaciers because it calves ice from underneath the surface. This is one of the glaciers in Alaska that is advancing. Since 1986, it has advanced far enough that twice it has cut off Russell Fjord and created a lake. In 2022, the Norwegian Sun was damaged when it hit an ice floe from the glacier. Since then, Cruise ships do not approach very near the glacier, but instead offer tours on smaller boats that get nearer to the glacial wall. Valdez was named in 1790 after the Spanish Navy minister Antonio Valdez y Fernández Bazán. A former gold rush town, it is located at the head of Port Valdez on the eastern side of Prince William Sound. Valdez was incorporated in 1901 and flourished after the road link to Fairbanks was constructed in 1910. It suffered catastrophic damage during the 1964 Alaska earthquake and is located near the site of the disastrous 1989 Exxon Valdez oil tanker spill. Today, it is one of the most important ports in Alaska, a commercial fishing port as well as a freight terminal. Valdez is the terminus for the Trans-Alaska Pipeline System. Finding no ship's tour that sounded good, we chose to stay aboard the ship. Seward is located at the head of Resurrection Bay, a fjord of the Gulf of Alaska on the Kenai Peninsula. The city is named for former United States Secretary of State William H. Seward, who orchestrated the United States purchase of Alaska from the Russian Empire in 1867. Seward is the southern terminus of the Alaska Railroad and the historic starting point of the original Iditarod Trail. The first settlement established at this location was a Russian fur trading post in 1793. We took the free shuttle into town and walked several blocks while shopping for souvenirs. The mountains that surround the town make for a beautiful setting. We woke up the next morning to the beauty of College Fjord. This was a day of cruising through the fjord, and we took advantage of our balcony for much of the day. College Fjord is located in the northern sector of Prince William Sound. The fjord contains 5 tidewater glaciers, 5 large valley glaciers, and dozens of smaller glaciers, most named after renowned East Coast colleges, women's colleges for the northwest side, and men's colleges for the southeast side. College Fjord was discovered in 1899 during the Harriman Expedition, at which time the glaciers were named. The expedition included a Harvard and an Amherst professor, and they named many of the glaciers after elite colleges. According to Bruce Molina, author of Alaska's Glaciers, they took great delight in ignoring Princeton. After a day at sea, we docked at Icy Strait Point, which is located at the site of a defunct salmon cannery. It is owned by the Hoonah Totem Corporation, whose members are native Alaskans. From the dock, you can choose from 4 activities. 1. Take a gondola to the largest zip line in the world. 2. Take a gondola to the village shopping area. 3. Hike through the forest to the shopping area. 4. Take a rope course in the forest. We took the free gondola to the shopping area. The gondola travels above the rope course, which was crowded with families from the Disney ship. We did some shopping in this area and then rode an old-school bus to the town of Hoonah. The driver gave good commentary on the way, but we were disappointed in the village and chose not to get off the bus. Arriving back at the shopping area, we decided to walk along the road to look for whales. We were glad we made this decision, as we were able to observe a pod of 5 whales off the shoreline. We also observed the arrival of the ferry from Juneau. The ferry service runs one time each week. Other than flying by private float plane, this is the only way residents can travel to or from Hoonah. Returning to the ship, we observed several bald eagles, one of which landed on a tree above our heads. We had to ride water shuttles to the small boat harbor due to 2 rock slides that endangered the dock area. Bo and I had to walk to the ferry terminal to pick up our car rental. After picking the ladies up at the dock, we headed north to Canada along the highway that paralleled the White Pass and Yukon Railway. We stopped at several pullouts along the road to observe the beautiful scenery and several waterfalls. We made an extended stop at the Canadian border to take pictures. We passed through some beautiful scenery that included several lakes on the way to Carcross. This area of sand dunes was a unique feature at Carcross. On the return trip, we were blown away by the reflection of the mountains in this lake. We had been on the lookout for bears on the entire drive, and I had just commented to the group that apparently we were not going to see any when we were rewarded by this bear crossing the highway. We passed the stream flowing from the mountains that crossed under the highway. We watched from skywalkers as the Grand Princess left Skagway. The exit down the Lynn Canal can be one of the highlights of an Alaskan cruise if the conditions and timing are right. However, on this occasion we left too early, and there were no clouds in the sky to enhance the beauty of this sail away. We sailed overnight to Juneau, the capital of Alaska. The docks are located below Mount Roberts and a short walk to the center of town. This is our 4th time in Juneau, and we have done all the shore excursions that we care to do, so we had a leisurely morning before going into town. During the day, we saw many seaplanes arriving and departing off our balcony. Since Juneau is one of several main ports that are on the itinerary of most cruises, we also observed several cruise ships as they entered and exited the harbor. The lines were too long at this restaurant, so we did some shopping before returning to the ship. Endicott Arm is one of 2 fjords that split off from Holcomb Bay, which is situated south of Juneau. Endicott Arm splits to the south, while Tracy Arm splits to the north. We have been to Tracy Arm before, but this is our first visit to Endicott Arm. We enjoyed viewing this fjord from the comfort of our balcony. With the steep cliffs rising out of the water and the multitude of waterfalls, this fjord reminded us of those in Norway more than any of the other fjords we visited on this trip. Dawes Glacier, which lies at the head of Endicott Arm, actively calves many large chunks of ice. This was apparent to us as we entered the fjord and witnessed many ice forms floating in the water. Many of the ice floes were inhabited by various types of seals who seemed to be enjoying sunning themselves on these floating islands. As with the fjords in Norway, Endicott Arm had a multitude of waterfalls that added to the natural beauty of this waterway. Dawes Glacier is a tidewater glacier that originates on the Alaska-Canada border and flows some 15 miles to Endicott Arm. The ice reaches depths of 600 feet and the front wall of the glacier is a mile wide. While exiting Endicott Arm, we had a medical emergency which required a helicopter evacuation. After 2 days at sea, we approached the harbor at Vancouver by sailing under the Lions Gate Bridge. The dock at Canada One Place is always a busy place. Usually there are multiple cruise ships here, the harbor is full of tankers and transport ships, and seaplanes take off constantly throughout the day. We took a taxi to the False Creek Public Market and wandered through the crowded aisles marveling at all the different items for sale. Exiting the indoor marketplace, we took a short walk along the False Creek Inlet. From here, we Ubered to Stanley Park. Stanley Park is located at the west entrance into Vancouver Harbor, and it marks the south end of the Lions Gate Bridge. We had never been to the park and wanted to take a carriage ride through it. We made a stop at the Totem Pole Park and then ended the ride at the Rose Garden and Restaurant before returning to the ship. After the brief overnight sail, we docked at Victoria where we rented a car and drove north up the east shore. We then cut across the island and returned down the west shoreline. This was followed by 2 days at sea as we returned to San Francisco.